Hi YouTube. When I was down in Florida recently, I went down there eyes wide open, like I try to do. And nowhere is the wealth gap more pronounced than Florida. Okay? And people that live down there, correct me if I'm wrong on some of my observations. But as you're driving around on any major highway, you're going to be passed by $200,000 cars. And meanwhile, a lot of the people around you are driving, older vehicles. Real estate, the upper end down there has done very well. If you're talking about $1 million properties, that market has recovered pretty well because the wealthy have more money to splash around. But the lower end hasn't recovered very much at all. It's not as bad as it was in 2008, 2009, okay? But the lower end real estate hasn't recovered. And when I was down there, I noticed that businesses were exploiting this wealth gap. And it made me ask the question, is this a trend that we're going to see going forward? And let me give you a few examples here. So for me, if you want to talk about a business that has exploited the wealth gap for like my entire lifetime, the number one has to be the airlines, right? You take an experience that is supposed to be universal, right? We're all hopping in a plane, we're flying. But, the airlines were able to turn it into a two-tier system. You have first class and second class. I realize they call it coach, but it's second class. Okay, I don't know how many people would sign up for it if they called it second class. But that's what it is. Remember when they had the curtains between first class and coach? And, the flight attendant would kind of glare at you, all you schmucks over in the second class, and she'd rip the curtain closed. That's the way it felt anyway. I realize I'm projecting. But, people would pay absurd money for those select 16 seats where they have more leg room. They get to eat a scallop salad, and the flight attendant calls them by their last name. Okay, Mr. Smith. Okay, and people pay up for it, and the airlines are very happy to do it. And meanwhile, in coach, you're just crammed in there. If the person in front of you reclines a seat 6 inches, he's basically in your lap. It's just not a good experience, and it's certainly not the glamour experience that it used to be. Okay, but the point is, I'm starting to see this trend more and more. So we went to the theme parks. When we're down there, we usually give each kid their choice of one theme park. And, they've gotten absurdly expensive. And it's unbelievable because they're just packed. They're all packed. There's no off-season anymore for Disney or anything else. So what I was greeted by as we pulled into Universal Studios was to go park, we had a choice. Preferred parking or regular parking. Now understand, we get there really early because there's a couple of hot rides that have absurd lines, and we want to get there early, get those rides out of the way so that we didn't spend all day in line. Well, believe me, we basically parked in the absolute furthest point that you could have even imagined, okay? And all because we didn't want to pay the extra $5. Now understand, the ticket to get into the park is about $140. Okay, so right there, for a family of 4, you're spending $520 for theme park tickets. And now, you tack on an extra $17 on top of that. Now, you haven't even bought your first $5 bottle of water. You're in deep already. And yeah, those that are willing to pay up, kind of went over to preferred parking and parked a little closer. I'm not afraid to walk. So anyway, we go to the theme park. Now, again, it should be a universal experience. You ride on the Hulk roller coaster, and whether rich, poor, it should be the same experience. You would be wrong. As we went in there, what theme parks used to do is literally they'd open up the doors, and if you paid your ticket, it was the same experience for everyone. And then they had a little bit of a novelty where they set up stations around the park, and you could get a quick pass ticket. Okay, easy pass, quick queue, whatever they want to call them today. And for a few rides, you could literally bypass the line. Well, they started to realize that people would pay up for this privilege to skip the lines. Okay, so if you wanted to skip the lines at Universal, you have to pay an extra $200 for that family of 4, the proverbial family of 4. An extra $200. Now, if you already spent $520, it's really difficult to talk yourself into that extra $200. Now you're almost talking about $800 just for theme park tickets. It's $190 for theme park tickets and the Easy Pass. Okay, so the average family is not going to pay that, and so then you're standing in line, and you quickly realize the line isn't moving. I mean, there's a Harry Potter ride there that at one point the line was 2 hours. And as you're in this mercilessly long line, as you get to the front of the line, you quickly realize why it's not moving. They oversell those Easy Pass tickets. And so they're letting them on and letting them on and letting them on, and you're just standing there like a fool. And they barely let your line even move. You know, they're basically exploiting that wealth gap by selling the privilege of not having to wait in line to wealthier people. Okay, so the theme park experience is no longer the same for everybody. Is that it? No. They had valet parking at the outlet stores. The outlet stores are supposed to be where bargains are to be found. And yet they have valet parking. Pay $20 for the privilege of parking about 50 yards closer than all the other schmucks. And, you know, it's really pathetic to see, to be honest with you, people pulling up in Range Rovers and, you know, paying somebody $20 to park their car for them, in all honesty. But it's there. It's there. And I wonder going forward, is this a trend that we're going to see? Are businesses going to start exploiting this wealth gap more and more? You see it at sporting events. Sporting events, certainly. You see it at concerts. Concerts is another great example. Now they sell like VIP passes for like the first 10 rows, and maybe you can meet the band or whatever, but you have to pay absurd money. And then the rest of the sheep have to literally wait until the rest of the public tickets go to the general public, and whatever crumbs are left over, you got to bid up on. You know, it's an absurd thing. Yeah, you see your favorite band, and you know you should have luck of the draw and be able to get in there. But no, unless you're willing to pay, and I'm talking literally in some cases. Well, it's more than that. Some of them are absurd. If you want to see like the Rolling Stones or something, but like an average band is going to charge you $250 a ticket or so for the rights to have seats in the first 10 rows. It's obnoxious. You know, I mean, what's next? Are they going to have first and second class seating in movies? You know, are you going to have to pay up for the center section of the movie theater? You know, how are businesses in the future going to exploit this wealth gap? I think it's coming to some level. I think you're going to start seeing this more and more. If you open up your eyes to it and realize that, you know, and some people are going to say, well, just businesses being smart and trying to boost revenue. That's all understood. But when you're basically trying to upsell what should be available to everybody, you're kind of taking advantage of that, because not everybody's going to be dumb enough to pay the extra money. So, all right, guys, give me your thoughts. Businesses exploiting the wealth gap now and into the future.